Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. Today, I'm joined by Brent Pry, the Virginia Tech head football coach. I wanted to talk to him about new Commanders receiver, Jaylin Lane. I had originally told you, or at least, well, let me back up for a minute. I was supposed to do something on the rookie minicamp from this weekend, right? Well, originally it was scheduled for the media portion was scheduled for Friday. Inclement weather pushed the open session to Saturday. Well, my son graduated from Boston Conservatory on Saturday. Shout out Sean, great job. Because of that, I was unable to attend. Kind of more important to attend to family matters. Anyways, I had planned to have Nikki Javala from the Washington Post on, but because the ceremony couldn't talk on Saturday, Mother's Day on Sunday, you can see I'm still up here in Boston, but I'm driving back with a bunch of my son's stuff. So it's going to be hard to coordinate schedules. Anyways, that's all to say. I switched to kind of the reverse here. I was going to do Brent Pry on Tuesday, but I'm pushing him to Monday and getting Nikki on for Tuesday. So there you go. We'll talk about the rookies, what she saw, some other things that Dan Quinn talked about in the pre-practice presser, and other topics still kind of out there with the Commanders. We also have the schedule coming up. It's going to be released on Wednesday. We'll see everything, how many primetime games they get. Spain is absolutely on the table for them against Miami. So I'm sure a lot of you know that by now, but anyways, we'll get into all that. So stay tuned for that for Tuesday. But today I wanted to talk to Brent Pry from Virginia Tech about Jaylin Lane. Oh, before I get to him, you Gold members, I do have this private Zoom Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. I apologize. I postponed it from Thursday, but what should get you on there for Monday night, we'll have a good chat and move forward. So anyways, that's all to say. Things got jumbled up. I appreciate your flexibility with this. And I'll bring on Nikki on Tuesday. So there we go. Here's my conversation with Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry. All right, Brent. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And the first thing we start with Jaylin is, what is Washington getting in Jaylin Lane?
Very well-rounded athlete and young man, special in a lot of ways. And I think everybody here in Blacksburg that got to know him would say that.
I read a quote afterwards, after the draft, that you point out him as a person before you get to the player. What is it about him in that way? Like, what are some things that stand out in that regard?
Yeah, he's the ultimate teammate. To come in here as a transfer can be challenging.
Right.
And he really was humble and worked his butt off to earn respect, to earn trust, to be a great teammate. He was captain material, outstanding family. Virginia Tech's one of those places that is very servant-minded, and, you do for others. And Jay Lane embodies that. Selfless individual that I think, would put his teammates before himself in just about every occasion.
How did you see that? Were there moments where you saw that, and what stood out in those regards?
Yeah, first of all, the leadership he showed in our group of receivers doing the extra work. Let's go get on the Monarch. Let's go run some routes. Let's go. He was respectfully, commanding these guys to be more than just to do what's required guy. Like, it takes more. For a guy that had pretty good success at Middle Tennessee to come here and still work so hard and be so humble, and there was never any sign of privileged or I'm a guy that's done this or done that, particularly after his first year with us, when a lot of people were talking about him and excited about him, and he doubled down and worked as hard as ever. But he's a guy that was always involved in our community service. We do it once a week by position, and we open it up to others that would like to be involved, even though their position isn't, involved that week. And Jay Lane was always a guy that jumped in with other positions to go help out around Blacksburg or Montgomery County. So he's just a very giving individual.
Is that rare for guys to be like that?
I think it's, I don't know that it's as rare here at Virginia Tech. ut prosum and that I may serve. That's who we are here. And I think that's one of the reasons that Jay Lane was able to flourish and not just be successful, but be happy here. He fit in very well with the culture that's in place at Virginia Tech. Do I think it's a special quality? Yes, I think it's an elite trait.
Mhm.
It's as important to me as a lot of the athletic skill set or prowess that you would like to see in a young man.
And how else would you see that show up? Because guys like that, that you can also see that sometimes translate to the field during games. How do you see that mindset showing up?
First of all, very coachable,
Mm.
very respectful, but also very intelligent to where the communication and the feedback was very valuable from him. The way he mentored and coached the younger wideouts or other wideouts in general at his position. He had a respect where people listened. And to be honest, he was a great listener.
Mm.
You get up in front of your team and you look out across it, the guys that are really, you know, listening in and wanting to get everything that you say and not miss anything. And he was always one of those guys.
And then, just in terms of, mentoring and all that, like what little things would he do that kind of highlights that?
Yeah, for a freshman in this program, at any program, it's challenging. You're the all-star in high school, and you get all this attention in the recruiting process, and then you get to college, and you look around, and you're not the top dog anymore. And sometimes you're a little farther down the list than you want to be. But he's the type of guy that could see that in a freshman and know that they're struggling with confidence and find some ways to motivate them, to point out the positives, to be uplifting, to point to his own experiences. And his father, to be honest, who was around quite a bit, very successful high school coach,
Right.
you see that in his dad. And his dad befriended many people here within this organization.
Yeah, because he played for his dad in high school, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So can you tell he's kind of the son of a coach?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The things that are important to Jaylin and his family are the same things that are important here to us. And so to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, I think, again, allowed him not just to find success here, but to find happiness and feel at home.
As a worker, and you brought up like how he'd take the receivers out for extra stuff, but what little things would he do extra that kind of, again, because there's different levels of work. Some guys can work hard, some guys
Yeah.
just go and they do little things on the side that are just different. What little things would he do that maybe were just a little bit different or stood out a little bit more?
Yeah, he's a detail-oriented young man. So whether it was just working on everything at the top of a route, I'd look out my window and he's got a couple guys out there. There's not a full route involved.
Hmm.
And there's no balls being thrown. They had broken it all the way down. And Jay Lane at his instruction, they're just working everything at the top of the route. He was one of those guys. He was trying to master his craft,
Hmm.
and so he brought a lot of guys along with him. He wasn't 100, 200 level. Fundamentals were always important, but to really refine his game and be the wideout he wanted to be, he took the extra step.
It's funny because you don't always see receivers being named the captain. And now after listening to you, I can understand why. But there's a position group captain, but also team leadership skills too. What made him a good captain beyond just that receiver room?
Well, let me say this. He was captain material because he was so respected through his work ethic and his selflessness. That's those two things, with our team, when they saw that in him at the high level that they saw it, he gets instant respect and credibility, and guys want to follow. So he was one of those guys. He wasn't always the most vocal, but, a quiet way of leading and certainly leading by example.
And it's funny because, I think a lot of times people think the rah rah, get up and do this. But I found out early on covering the NFL, it's really those kind of guys are the most effective. Just, bring people along,
Yeah.
like bring your group along and help lead them. You don't have to get up and make this demonstrative stuff, but bring people along. It sounds like that's kind of what he does.
That is what he does. And, he wasn't named a captain here, and probably because he wasn't as vocal as maybe some guys look to. But I don't know if there was anybody that had earned more respect than Jaylin, to be honest. And
Did you
that's
know?
not just with his peers, but that's with the staff and the coaches.
Did you know? Did you anticipate this package when you guys got him from Middle Tennessee State?
We try very hard to learn and know as much as we can when we take somebody through the transfer portal. And there were relationships through members of my staff with his father,
Okay.
which, knowing the type of man that he is, that family is. It didn't take long to get around Jaylin to see that the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
Now, on the field, the big thing is that speed. You're a
Mm,
defensive boss, right? That's what
yeah.
your background has
Yep.
been. So when you see a guy like that as a defensive guy, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, it's hard to cover. You got to have a DB with the skill set. If you want to play some man, you got to have a pretty special guy that can cover down on him. He's deceptively quick. He's deceptively long for being the stature that he is. He's bigger than people realize. He's got long arms. He's just a challenging man for a lot of reasons. And then on top of that, with the speed to find the void in the zone, he could do that pretty quick for you.
It
And
seemed
then
like you guys like to try and stretch the field horizontally with him as much as vertically.
both.
What kind of advantage and does he give you in that regard?
Yeah, I told our offense early on he's got some running back qualities. Like he's very good with the ball in his hand. So however we can get it to him, let's do it. So there was certainly a large number of plays over the 2 years that were tagged, to ensure that he got the ball, whether it was out of the backfield, on a sweep or something, or a quick bubble, or let's get it out there to him, see what he can do. He's stronger and runs tougher than people expect. To have the traits of a slot, the quickness and
Right.
the change of direction, but then at the same time to be able to break tackles the way he does.
I know he played a lot of the slot. What's the experience outside? Do you think he could play both in the NFL, or is he best as a slot guy?
I it I like him off the ball wherever you put him, just so that the ability to do some things on end arounds and some orbits. But I think his at first glance you might say he doesn't appear to be the type of guy you want outside, but as they get to know him and realize his strengths, and I think they'll feel like he could play out there as well.
Then, because the other thing I noticed too, in watching you guys, like he goes in motion, you're going to get eyes on him because of that speed. I mean, how much would you see him affecting the defense even without the ball?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once he had the success he had on plays like that, he did get a lot of eyes, which created some opportunities in some other places for us.
Punt returner. I know I talked to one coach in the NFL. It's like he can run, really good punt returner. You can turn on the film and see that. What makes him speed is great, but what makes him a really good punt returner?
He's very sure-handed, but he's also very courageous. Like
Mhm.
there's no flinch there. He wants to catch the ball and he wants to do something with it. We were fortunate to have him in that regard, and you want to trust your punt returner. I
Mhm.
mean, they can be really talented and be really fast and courageous, but if you don't trust them, it's hard to put them out there sometimes. And so he had it all. He was a guy that we certainly felt like would make great decisions, but could also do special things with the ball.
There were a couple of times where does your heart, like you said, he's courageous. That can also lead to that heart drop. And a couple of times, because
Yeah.
I saw a couple of times where he's catching the ball in traffic, making a nice run out of it. So, how long does it take a while to trust that? Or do you still like, nice play?
Well, the wideout coach would get mad at me. We got to get him out of there.
Yeah,
We're not at a point in our program yet where we can't afford to have our best players
right.
doing what they do best. So we were fortunate he was able to help us a bunch that way.
He also seems like when he runs the ball, it's he weaves more than he dances or anything like that. How does that make him more effective in open field like that?
I think he's elusive that way.
Yeah.
I think he has some surprising qualities that create opportunities for him because he's stronger than he appears. He's longer than he appears. He does glide better than you would think, but he also has a quick step. So, I think this guy is a very well-rounded, receiver to me.
As one of the things, so I just some of the draft guys take these for what it's worth, but they would talk about like, does he run the routes at the same speed? Does he make how will he be in contested catches? So from your perspective, what do you think about that? But what also everybody's got something they have to work on. What are some things for him at the next level that might need to improve, I guess?
I think you mentioned one of them. I think contested catches for a guy with his reach, his length, and his toughness, he can be better there. I think he
Right.
will be. I also think blocking on the perimeter, for us, that was important. He just happened to have the ball a lot
Right.
on those quick screens and bubbles. And so, it didn't come up quite as much for him. But, improvement there, I think, will help his game as well.
And then, it's funny because contested catches, Terry McLaurin worked on that a lot. Like, how good will it be for him to have a guy like McLaurin, Debo Samuel around him?
Absolutely. I think that's, learning from others will be invaluable for him.
And then playing with Jaden Daniels. I don't know how much you've gotten to watch Jaden Daniels over the years, but like getting a guy with speed like that, what can it do for a quarterback like Daniels?
I just think they're gonna get along fantastic. From what I know about Jaden, what I've learned about him, he's gonna find a guy that he trusts tremendously, that can do some special things when he gets him the ball. So I look forward to watching that relationship bloom.
And then the last thing with the speed, because again, like it seemed like it's not just downfield speed, right? It's more using it all over, but it just as a flat downfield guy, what makes him, is there something else in addition to the speed that makes him maybe effective getting on those downfield routes?
Yeah, I think it's his length. This guy plays longer than what his appearance says he should, and that can be deceptive, but that also helps you get down the field.
Brent, I appreciate your time. Thank you for the
Yes,
insight.
sir. Yes, sir. Good luck to you.
Thank you too. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Brent for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Tuesday with another episode, so I'll talk to you next time.